Welcome to the June 8th, 2016 meeting of the Milton School Committee. As is our tradition, please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag and our country. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any changes on the June 8th agenda?
Sorry, I didn't look at it.
Yeah, we have to, we kind of tend to have to deal with that first ballot.
Okay. For citizen speak, we have Karen Viveros.
Hi, everyone. I'm here as a representative from the PTO leadership team at Pierce, and I'm here to talk about our new initiative for school supplies. I'm not sure how much you guys have heard, but basically what we tried to do this year was alleviate some of the parent pressure that we've been hearing about over the many years in the schools about this mad scramble in September. You get a list, it's like a scavenger hunt, we have to go to Staples, it's really crowded, we miss all the sales, there's nothing left, it's really expensive, there's like a million reasons to look at this, and we've talked about it for many years. And this year we've decided to do something about it. So one of the parents, Michelle Cardoza, said that she would help out, which was great. And basically what we did was decide we'd do a pilot program this year to see how it went. The administration worked with teachers on each team to devise lists of what school supplies were really needed. It gave them an opportunity to really look at what they were asking for as well, which I think was very, important. And we came up with a streamlined list for each grade, so a 6th grade list, a 7th grade list, an 8th grade list. Michelle worked with WB Mason to come up with pricing, which was great because they are giving us a really good deal. Basically the price range is between $65 and $75 per student, which if many of you parents know, that's a really good deal for what you usually spend at Staples. And in the fall, you'll be placing the order over the summer. We will be packaging it as the PTO with parent volunteers. So putting each as a 6th grade packet, and we're going to be putting it in the classroom for the student on the first day of school. So they can go home with it as opposed to be coming in with it after Labor Day. So far, we've had excellent feedback. Parents have been really, really positive, and I think immediately as soon as we sent it out, we started getting orders and emails and thank yous, and we've had 212 orders, and an additional $1,000 that were donated by parents, in small increments to help out families who couldn't afford it. So we'll be able to help out even more than we originally thought. So basically that's sort of it. We'll see how it goes in September, but we're excited about trying it. We're excited that, other schools can learn from this hopefully too, and we'll see where it goes, but we're trying.
Excellent.
Yeah. Any questions?
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask Karen, because I as a school committee member kind of reached out because I finished my year on Pierce PTO leadership because of the fact that I had gotten, I'm not going to use the word complaints, I'm just going to use the word requests, right, from so many people in the parent community. And it is something that we brought to all the PTOs of the schools and everyone at Mary's PTO leadership that we have with all 6 schools. And all are very excited about it and all thought it was a great idea. But it is a big undertaking, it's a lot of scheduling, and it's also, Dr. Spalding's here, I know, for health and wellness, but we cajoled her to cowboy up and reach out to her staff to get everybody on page to work together about the supplies. But as she did say to us, it was a good kind of revisit to see what is being used. And I just want to say as a parent that when we came back with all the needs, I mean, $65 per student where a parent is usually paying anywhere from $150 to $200. That's a huge savings. And then at the same time, because when you do it through a super supplier, we will also, it serves as a fundraiser for each school. So every school that does it is going to have profits for their PTO to then give back to the students at their school. At the same time, it's a cost saving to the families in Milton, and a huge convenience that you think when my Miguel Varela comes back to 8th grade and whatever team he is, his packet is right there in his super homeroom on the desk. So I'm really excited about it as a school committee member and as a parent. And we're going to reassess, what worked, where we can make efforts, and roll it out to the other PTOs and maybe kind of then continue to cascade it through the district. So it's going to be a great thing, I think. So thank you. Thank you, Dr. Spalding, for letting us pilot, and thank you, Karen. Thank you. Thank you so much.
What a great idea.
Next, we have our former colleague, Linda Lee Sheridan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's so nice to be here. Thanks for having me. Linda Lee Sheridan, 57 Clifton Road, Milton. I'm here tonight wearing my We Are Milton hat and to tell you about a very exciting event that's coming up. Hopefully everyone has it marked on their calendars already, but just in case you don't, the end of June, the last weekend, it's a great way to celebrate the closing of school. On June 25th and June 26th, we will host We Are Milton's annual Milton Music Fest and fireworks. It's held up at Hutchinson Field overlooking the Boston skyline, and if you haven't been there recently, just drive along Adams Street down towards Lower Mills. It's looking really beautiful. The no ticks, no poison ivy, no mosquitoes. We're taking care of all of those things for people ahead of time, and the grass is cut, and it's going to have a pretty spectacular stage, the biggest stage we've ever had yet. This is our 4th year. And all day long on Saturday, starting at 3 o'clock, we'll have a host of different speakers, and I have to use my notes because I don't want to leave anyone out. But we start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon with a sampler from our own MAC. Our own Milton Arts Center has an open mic night once a month, and some of their best and brightest are going to be joining us for that. And actually, I saw a clip the other day of a little girl who's 11 or 12 that is not to be missed. Her voice is just amazing. We have Zip Zap and the Zops, which is a quartet from here at Milton High School, a jazz quartet, and they're all graduating, so this is kind of like their senior swan song, so it will be a very special night for them. Then they're followed by John Lucas and Company. It's 3 young men who are 17 and 18 years old that currently go to Thayer Academy. One of them is graduating. They've opened for Dropkick Murphy. They're out there. They're performing around. They're leaving actually right after the performance to go to something in New York that they're performing in the next day. So it's a guitarist and a drummer and a singer who is just really very talented gentlemen. Our own Caitlin and Kelly Neville will be returning this year. One of them was sick last year, so we're really thrilled that they can be back. And they've won country awards across America, so we're really excited to have them. We have a group called Lower Falls that comes from Milton. Again, some of our own Milton favorites. Frank Graham, if you remember her, she was really talented, not young, but a woman who is very good and has a great backup band. And then we have a very special performance with a group called Divas with a Twist. I had the opportunity to hear them recently. It's 5 women who all come from a musical theater background, and they're backed up with some Grammy Award-winning musicians, and they sing everything imaginable. We actually ordered a dance floor for in front of the stage because the event I saw them at, people were up and dancing from the get-go. So they'll be really great, and they're the last group before our highlighter, which is Bugsy Moran and Good Clean Fun. I've also had the privilege to hear Bugsy sing, and he sounds like Billy Joel. I mean, he just has an amazing voice. He performs all over New York. So we're very fortunate to have this group of talented musicians leading up to double the fun of fireworks. So I know some of you have heard this, but this year we have 2 barges of fireworks. And it will begin around 10 o'clock as soon as it's dark enough, and it should be really, really quite the fireworks display, unlike we have seen in Milton in the past. I can say in the last 5 years, that's for sure. So Jackson Blue will be hosting the event throughout the day. And again, we'll have lots and lots of activities for kids, bouncy houses, face painting. We'll have some caricatures. We have some Star Wars folks. We have Elsa is coming. And maybe some Minion sightings around too. So there's really something for everyone. There'll be food trucks, so you can come literally at 3 o'clock, bring your blankets or your chairs and spend the day and just have good, free family fun. We'll have free parking and the whole event is free. So we hope you can bring your family. And this wouldn't be possible without the most generous donations of the Copeland Family Foundation. They are the reason that this is possible. We have other small donors who are stepping up to support us this year too, but they're the dream, the vision behind the whole weekend. So we're so thankful to them. Then on Sunday, we have our Celtic Sunday, and I'll just go quickly through this and read some of the names if that's okay. We have Colm O'Brien, Brian Gaffney. We have the Screaming Orphans. They're our headliners, and they are coming straight to us from Ireland. We have Erin's Medley. We have the Skiffs, our own Pauline Wells, Devry, Patsy Whalen and Paul Kenny, and Feeney and Sons. And if those of you are involved at all in the music world of Irish music, these groups are really, really well known and have quite a following. So Sunday begins around 11:30 and should go through till 8 o'clock. So again, something for everyone, and we hope that people will be able to come out and join us. So what's the date?
25th.
And 26th, great, June 25th and 26th. And wearemilton.org is the website. You can like us on Facebook. And Kristen, did you want to add something?
Don't you need some volunteers for Sunday? I think on Saturday, but on Sunday I got roped into running the bouncy houses, and I found out there's 5 that need 2 people. So I need 28 people on Sunday. I thought it was 1. It's 5. So, but you need 2. So anyway, and I think they need the same on Saturday, but I'm just speaking for
Sure.
what I have to do.
So they should contact you
Yeah, Bagley
or
Jones
someone from the
podcast
Milton
that.
Arts Center if they're interested in helping. Great.
Thank you for
Okay.
reminding me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Sheridan. And if you could get back to us on how the Screaming Orphans got their name, that would be good. Next, we have a report or update from the Health and Wellness Subcommittee, I think, on the work that the committee has done and the work that the committee is planning to do in the coming year. I'd like to recognize a guest, our former colleague, Laurie Stillman, who, as someone who's been quite active on the Substance Abuse Coalition, has been a great partner for us as we try to tackle some of the youth risk survey results that we've reported out on. So I expect we'll be hearing more from you in the future, but thank you for joining us. Ms. Bagley-Jones?
Thank you. So Janet's going to run that for me. There are only a few slides, but let me just explain to the viewing public and to my colleagues what you have. You have a couple of notes in here, and then this is copied from a very large document from DESE about safe, healthy, and supportive schools, and it gives you some background data on it. So the Health and Wellness Committee, next page. I wanted to list all the members because we're a committee that's been meeting. I've been on the committee for 8 years, and before myself, it was Laurie Stillman actually running it. So the Health and Wellness Committee has been around for a long time. And then there's another page of members.
Wow.
So we have 2 pages of members. We have so many people that we have to turn them away. There isn't enough room in the conference room. So I wanted to put their names up there. Oh, is it Erica Dunton?
Ms. Bagley-Jones, do you have,
Dunton, okay.
Kristen, do you have more copies of the?
Yep. We're missing some?
Yeah.
We're sharing 2 more. There you go. So you're all set. Oh, I thought they all went around, I'm sorry.
We're all set. Thank you. They're all set.
So it's important to note their names, one, because of the work that they've been doing, but also as we go on the presentation, you'll see why their roles are so important. So when we met to talk about what we wanted to update the school committee and the viewing public about, it really was some reflections on the work that we've done. And Karen, jump in anytime, and Mary and Janet. It was really looking back and saying, you know, we really have a lot of excellent pockets of health and wellness activities, programs, staff that already exist in the district. A little bit of a silo feeling to it sometimes, like we do great things over here and over here and over here, but we need to figure out a way to put it all together. So we'll talk more about. We have the data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey completed. That was a multi-year process just to get it done, taken, compiled, researched. So that was a big deal. We have some data then. And then you'll see the committee consists of representatives necessary for moving our efforts forward. We have an excellent, as you saw tonight, robust health, nutrition services. We have a bullying policy that the BPAC committee worked on. We have a strong counseling and guidance department. We have committed parents, as we saw tonight. So we have a lot of things already in place. We just want to pull them together. In the past, some of the things, I haven't quite gotten there yet. So
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Oh, fine, it's fine. We've always tried to work K through 12. Mary has been very good at reminding us to do that. Whatever initiatives we try to support or take on, it's always K through 12. It always should have activities for parents, and we've tried really hard to have things for teachers, but some years we did better than others. But those were our 3 guiding principles that we have worked on. And then you can go on to the next page, Janet. So then, Desi's behavioral health framework, which I gave school committee members a copy. This is a 168-page document, so I gave you just a couple of highlights from it. But behavioral health is the buzzword these days, as it should be. It's a very important aspect that many of our schools aren't able to address. I think we do a very good job in Milton with these issues, but we need to try to pull them together and figure out where we're going. So this is their framework, and it's obviously behavioral health has a major impact on learning, positive school environments, which we have. You know, when kids are being bullied or other things are happening that are worrying them, they're not learning. We know our school leaders have to see that this is important, which they do. We have to have measurable goals, which we're always working on. And expertise of mental health professionals, nurses, and other support staff, and that includes bus drivers, secretaries. Everybody has to have the same language, the same understanding of what the issues are. School-based behavioral health support teams that coordinates the services, which we have. Schools work with relevant community providers, which is where Lori Stillman comes in. She's one of our very big community providers. And then any curricula that we do has to promote these following issues, which we'll talk more about. Next page, please. And then families have to be essential partners, which they are. We work a lot with families in this district. A lot of respect for ethnic and cultural diversity, and also in the nature of specific disabilities, which we've heard a lot about in our, what was it called, PG, the report? PCG, and also from parents of children with special needs. And then the professional development for all staff to support these behavioral interventions. And then the next slide, this is my favorite graphic. I don't know if you can see it okay, but it's basically saying, if you look at it, at the top in the middle, the writing's kind of hard to see. It says health education. So these are all the things for a successful school to have, and looking at the whole child, you need these things. So if you start at health education at the top, well, we have that. Then you go to PE, we have that already. Nutritional, we have Jackie Morgan running a great job. Health services, we have the nursing department. Counseling, we have adjustment and guidance. Social emotional climate, that's where our BPAC bullying prevention would fit in, and maybe some other things. Physical environment, we have a beautiful, safe, clean, well-maintained environment. Employee wellness is an issue we talked about, we want to work more on. Family engagement, we now have a family liaison. Marty McKinnon, am I saying her name right? McKenna. And she's doing a fabulous job, so we already have that. And then the community involvement, again, which is the Milton Substance Abuse Coalition and the Milton Hospital. So those are the things that we need to have a comprehensive whole child approach. So Karen is going to, Dr. Spalding is going to join us and talk about what we need to do going forward. And this is not to say we're doing this. This is to say we're bringing it to your attention now as we work over this over the summer, get input from you, work on it over the summer, and continue into the next year. So the next slide is where Karen is going to come in. And Karen, do you want to sit there, or come up here? Where do you want to sit?
Oh, right here's.
So I'll speak a little bit first about a grant that the Pierce Middle School has and how that sort of fits into the work within the Health and Wellness Subcommittee. So Pierce currently has a teen dating violence intervention and prevention grant from DESE for $10,000. So there were a number of components to that grant. One was professional development. One was the establishment of a leadership team around developing healthy relationships in students. Another piece of it had to do with looking at curriculum. And then another piece, and a very important piece, was the idea of looking at policy and making recommendations, sort of digesting what exists in terms of wellness policy in the district, and then thinking about what are the recommendations around policy to branch it out into some of these areas, because as was mentioned, there is a really robust policy around nutrition and around physical fitness, and so we've been thinking about what other pieces might we think would be important to put in there. So to address social, emotional, and behavioral health, and just overall well-being of students. And so we've been having some conversations in the Health and Wellness Subcommittee, we being some of the teacher leaders and administrators from Pierce, to sort of share some of our work. And we have, through the grant, been working with Casey Corcoran, who's with the organization Futures Without Violence, and also as a parent in the district. And so we've been doing a lot of work around there and sort of thinking about how all that, how all of these pieces fit together. So in thinking about what are the next steps and sort of moving forward in terms of the Health and Wellness Subcommittee and us as a leadership group at Pierce, the first step of that is to take a step back and sort of say what currently exists. So to conduct sort of a self-assessment of what is in place at this moment for students to really support their social, emotional, and behavioral well-being. And that would be what's in place for all students, what's in place for those who require some early intervention, and what's in place for students who might require some real targeted intervention, who might be in crisis or headed towards crisis. And so there is a tool that Kristen Bagley-Jones made, or excuse me, committee member, Bagley-Jones, I apologize, made reference to, and that's the Behavioral Health Public Schools Assessment. And basically there are subsections, so leadership, professional development, policies and protocols, connections with resources, connections with families, and the process would be a team. They recommend a team of 3 to 10 folks from each school. Use the self-assessment tool to really reflect on, again, what is in place in each of those areas around supporting the behavioral health and well-being of all students. And the way the assessment is conducted is there's a list of strategies and action steps, and the school identifies those action steps that are currently in place, and then those that are currently in place and they would like to continue, and then those that might not be yet happening, but the school has some interest in putting into place. And basically what they get in the end is an overall look at all of these, those different subsections that I referenced, and it gives the school some guidance around what might be some real critical areas and next steps. And the power of doing it by school and then taking a step back and looking at it across the district is you get both the fine-grained look at what is happening in each of the schools, and what's working, and how are we being supportive of students, and how can we learn from each other and then create a more consistent sort of district process for supporting students, again, K-12, actually pre-K-12, in the district. So the thinking around that was to do that self-assessment work sooner rather than later, to really give some direction and guidance to the work via the Health and Wellness Subcommittee.
And what we were looking for, or what Karen and I talked through, and she helped educate me about this, is the things that we're doing in the health and wellness and have been for years. we almost want something to hang it on, right? That's what the framework piece is about. So are there policies that should go on that hanger? Are there practices or protocols that are happening or not happening? But we're not that we're doing a bad job at all, but we just want to pull it together and coordinate it. So there very well may be some policies that we would come up with that we would send to the policy committee. There may be some practices we want to come back. Well, Mary's on the health and wellness, so we would be talking all along. But that's where this came from, is how do we pull it together?
Yeah.
And then you showed me this great tool that you can do online through DESE and things that we could do ourselves, as well as a blueprint for some things we might want to do in the future.
Right.
Silence descends.
You know,
Ms. Varela?
yeah, no, well, first of all, just thank you for, like, sharing and giving an overview of what's been done, what's been, and what you're building upon. And like you say, I think it's very interesting that, both you've said and Dr. Spalding said that, now that you sort of have this framework, it's almost like you can move forward, I don't want to say at a faster pace, but you sort of understand, what are you going to hang on that frame that you just spoke about? And like you say, when you analyze school by school and then you analyze district-wide, it's just going to be more beneficial for us. So, and I'm going to say, again, I served for many years on middle school, the middle school PTO leadership, and the whole behavioral health piece, which I know it's important at any level, but when middle school and high school come, it is kind of a social and emotional piece that it changes so quickly, and there's so many needs from so many kids on that 6-12 level. It's really nice that health is now a part of the curriculum that everyone takes. I know that, like we just said on our wish list, that it's going to be part of the K-5 environment. So there's a lot of positive things, I think, happening and can continue to happen. So that whole social emotional well-being part of it, and then the health piece, where I know, as I've shared openly, that I have 2 children who have health issues that are very serious, and I've had to work with the nursing departments in Cunningham, Collicott, Pierce, and the high school, which have all been fabulous. But I've also, been very aware that we do, which is a better thing cost containment wise, that children with health, both physical and mental health issues, we keep them in the district because it's a better cost containment environment for us. But we also need to continue to be ready to handle them and deal with their needs, both physically and socially and emotionally. So it is a huge part of the educational experience that people don't think about, but it can make or break every child's overall experience in the system. So speaking as a parent and then also as a leader in the schools, in the community, it's great that strides are being made to improve.
Dr. Craighead?
Maybe I didn't hear this correctly, but Ms. Bagley-Jones or Dr. Spalding, this needs assessment tool, you talked about getting work done over the summer. Has this actually been given out to the schools, or this is just a plan that you have?
No, I can clarify that, and Karen, you jump in. What we had talked about, sort of just brainstorming in an ideal world,
Okay.
with lots of resources, wouldn't it be great if we could get some folks in the district, because there's so many talented people who work in the district already in health education and mental health and other issues, to work together to come up with a framework for us to work from next September.
I see.
That's our wish list.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it's not there yet, but we'd like it to be.
I hope it is,
So
yeah.
we're getting, really what we want to be able to answer, and would also, I would assume, I would bring it forth to the school committee as a school committee goal for us to talk about, can we articulate what skills and knowledge our students should be able to articulate, double word there, across K-2 regarding behavioral, social, physical, and emotional health. And that's what we want to be able to come to a solid understanding of. That would be the insight. Mary, I don't know if you want to add anything to that?
To Ms. Craig, Dr. Craighead's question, Dr. Spalding is very successful in writing grants.
Yes.
And so in addition to the DESI grant that's in place now, Dr. Spalding had written a $30,000 grant for just this tool, for the personnel that it would take, the time that it would take, the resources it would take. And we were going to pilot at the high school, PS and Tucker, and that was going to be a $30,000 cost. Am I correct? You want to elaborate on that?
Sure. So that was the grant that got away. It's reopened a wound for me. I'm kidding. But yeah, the idea was to use the tool at Tucker, at Pierce, and at the high school. And the funds were also targeted to support some of those action plans. So it was kind of a self-assessment, and then also funds to support whatever pieces needed to be put in place as a result of the self-assessment. And the pocket of money is out of the Safe and Supportive Schools branch of the Department of Education. But I believe it's federal money that comes down through the state, so it is possible that they will offer it again this coming school year. So the grant is ready to go again. But we can also, I carry the list of folks who were awarded the grant with me. So we can also reach out to those districts and sort of learn, part of their responsibility is outreach too, and sort of see what, how they use the tool and what they learned and how they implemented it. But it's an important first step to figure out, sort of what are the next, where should the target areas be, where should resources be targeted and allocated to support the work moving forward, so.
Ms. Eberhard?
I just have a quick question. So you mentioned K through 5. You incorporating any of this social emotional curriculum piece in the preschool part of the district?
I was just saying K through 5 out of
Okay.
habit.
Out of habit, okay.
That would be part of looking at what's needed.
Because
Well,
the
I
social,
think that's a question for the superintendent.
It is pre-K through.
Okay.
Whatever happens in the elementary schools, the value of having those preschools housed in the elementary school, as goes the elementary school, goes
Right.
the preschool.
and so you use the second step as the social emotional curriculum for the elementary and the preschool programs?
We're planning to implement it. We'll partially implement it in the next school year and fully implement the following year.
Do you use any other types of social emotional curriculum, or that's the main one that we use?
We use bully proofing your schools.
Okay. Excellent. Those, like, second step has a common language that you
It's
use.
wonderful,
Yeah,
yes.
I remember
We-
when the
we just,
boys were in Glicklover, the woman came and did a parent presentation at the PTO meeting about second step.
So we're looking to reinstate that program in the
Okay.
district, the elementary grades. We had a curriculum committee representative of all the elementary schools, and they looked at a number of different programs and came up with Second Step as the best program that would suit us. And it has it's a very teacher-friendly program. It can be, we think, fairly easily incorporated into the programs, and we're really excited about it.
May I,
Absolutely.
one note? So in one of the commissioner's email blasts, the Children's Trust endorsed Second Step. And the head of the Children's Trust, we're very proud, is Suzanne Botley, the wife of Chris Navin, who works with us on CDM for the last, I tease him, 35 years. So I wrote to Suzanne, and she brought the national expert on Second Step to our full leadership team and addressed the full leadership team. And I think it was very powerful for our pre-K through 12 coordinators and principals to understand what's going to be rolled out at the elementary school next year. So it's got a very, very firm foundation. And just one more note, that we're going to talk about the health and the PE health and the athletic director. But if I might, with us tonight is Lori Stillman, who Milton parent, former Milton parent, and the head of the in my mind, the head of the coalition, and Ms.
I
Stillman.
think she's still a Milton parent.
Yes. She wrote a grant to the Women's Club on behalf of the Milton Public Schools, and I want to recognize you publicly and thank you. And we were recently awarded a $7,000 stipend for next year to have somebody oversee our social emotional curriculum, the professional development options. As I've forwarded today to several people, school districts are now hiring social emotional coordinators, department heads. You gave me, Chairman Walker, a clip from the Boston Public Schools that they have an assistant superintendent in charge of social emotional wellness. So Ms. Stillman and the Milton Women's Club will give updates all next year on the progress of that position, how we're going to fill it, and how we're going to use that money. But I write to the principals and tell them perhaps 2 or 3 times a day from across the state, I receive options for professional development, programs for students, and we need a point person who is able to decide and assign these opportunities and really target the funds that we have and what our initiatives are.
Ms. Bagley-Jones?
And also I wanted to say about Lori is that she's been an incredible help to us around all of our data, helping us understand the parts of it that, you know, we do a lot of things in Milton very, very well, as we talked about on the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, and then some areas where we still need to work on. And Laurie has been and continues to be a great support around that kind of thing. And I know this is right up your alley. You can love this stuff. So it's just really appreciated what you've done and the connections you've made with us throughout the school system and the school committee. It's been great.
So that's a perfect lead-in. I think one of the most compelling presentations we heard last year was regarding the youth risk survey results, which I said at the time, some of those things I found quite troubling. So I actually have a question for Ms. Stillman and then a follow-up for the superintendent and health and wellness subcommittee. Don't move, we'll hand you the mic there. Ms. Stillman's still not at her 100-yard dash pace yet, so just. So the question is, as Kristen has alluded, the Substance Abuse Coalition has been a great partner for us. But can you talk a little more specifically about some of the activities that the coalition has engaged in regarding the youth risk survey and how that's proceeding? I'm feeling a sense of urgency here that we really need to get back to the school committee with an action plan. That might be policies, it might be actions we need to take, but some of the things we heard in that survey could be life-threatening for our kids. So I think it's a pretty serious issue.
So that's an excellent question. Well, a couple of things. First of all, I want to commend the schools for having done the YRBS, because I think that it is, data is so critical. We can all surmise what some of the problems are, but until you really have the data and know what the biggest problems are, you can't really target your resources and your interventions. So we have a lot of good data from the YRBS. It tells us where our biggest issues are, and those are mostly around binge drinking, marijuana use, prescription drugs. Those are the major issues, and some around depression. But what the YRBS didn't answer was the why behind that data. And so what the coalition has engaged in is we did a part A of collecting the data, which is the sort of statistical and numerical data. We are currently in the process of collecting qualitative data from people in the community to better understand what the knowledge, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors are that will help us to better understand what the statistics were telling us. And so we have done a number of things in collaboration with the schools. The first is we put out a parent survey. And thanks to the support of the Milton Public Schools and the Milton Times, we have gotten over 800 responses from parents to that 50-question survey. I am in the
great.
process of using SAS to, which is a sort of a statistical platform to begin to understand the information, but it is unbelievable what that is going to tell us in terms of helping to understand what kinds of information and supports we need to give to parents in order to help support the kids. So the parent survey analysis will be done in the next month. In addition, the coalition has engaged in 2 other areas of qualitative data collection. One is we did, with the support of the Milton Public Schools, 3 student focus groups. One of 8th graders in the middle school, one of 9th and 10th graders, and one of 11th and 12th graders. Those students were incredibly forthcoming about what they think the issues are around substance abuse, where it's happening, and what needs to happen. And thirdly, we're conducting key informant interviews with community leaders and people who are affected by substance abuse to hear what their ideas are for what the community needs to do collaboratively to address these issues. By the end of the summer, we will be pulling together all of this qualitative data, the parent survey, the student focus groups, and the key informant interviews, and we will be presenting all that data to the community. I would like to talk to the schools about the best way to roll out that information because it's going to be very powerful information for us. That data, once we have the quantitative and qualitative data, will take us to developing a community strategic plan. That strategic plan will use the data to look at evidence-based interventions that we can begin to prioritize this work. And finally, by the end of the year, the coalition will be pursuing a drug-free communities federal grant. That's a $1 million grant that we think that we're positioned to go after that will help to support the schools and the community in implementing that strategic plan. So we're very excited because we've been trying to really have a measured approach to this. It's not just jumping in and being nervous by the data, but to actually look at it and to have a real understanding of what the opportunities are so that we have the best potential for making impact.
Thank you, that's helpful. Ms. Varela?
Okay, go ahead. I just wanted to speak a little bit about the parent survey that went around, which I took, and I know many people did. When it comes to substance abuse behavior, in the years recently that I have been on the leadership team at Pierce, we always bring in, that's a huge issue for speakers that we bring in, and we bring them in for the parent community of like what to be aware of, what to in some ways maybe how to talk to your kids and things like that. But I do feel as though when you talk about like the whole issue, that the parent piece is, I think, the weakest piece and the piece that needs to be worked on the most. Because like you say, when you do the surveys and the kids are forthcoming, I still believe that when it comes to, health, like talking about drugs, alcohol, risky behavior, whatever you want to say, parents have a difficult time talking to grades 6 through 12 about that. And so in some ways, I think they ignore it or they just don't talk about it. And then that's why these things then occur. So I'm hoping that, from the survey, I think bringing people in, to constantly educate the parent community of how to talk to their kids about this, even though it's a really difficult thing to do, even when they want to just, say, don't even speak to me. So because I think that piece of it is a weak link in the town as a community member, as a parent of teens. I think the school's been doing a lot of very good things in the health program, especially starting at the middle school, kids know what can happen to them if they make these poor choices. Yet it's still happening. So I'm hoping that that your coalition and committee can really make an impact on the parent community, in giving them tools to speak to their kids about it, and, you know, different avenues if this one doesn't work of what to do, because that's a real weakness I found. And
Well, I think you're right, and the parents actually agree that they could use help. But you know what's the most interesting? Is that the students agree. The students in the focus groups say, our parents don't know how to talk to us and help us make decisions. And that they would like more information instead of having just information about what's right and what's wrong, what are the bad drugs, what are, you know, it's how to be effective in being able to make the right decisions and have the strength to do that. And so I think that that's where we're going to have to focus.
Dr. Donahue?
And just to piggyback on both of those comments, I think it's important too to present the parent and community at large with what the norms are for, in particular, alcohol use and recreational drug use, because, you know, quite frankly, that's not something that's discussed openly to any great extent. So, you know, you need to have a conversation about what is normal and what is abnormal to begin with, and then start to talk to parents and students and other members of the community about how to proceed from there and not make destructive decisions.
Ms. Bagley-Jones?
I think that, and we've had this conversation in several different places and ways, which has been great. I think to Leroy's point about the imminent risks of the behaviors that we talked about, that both the work of the coalition as well as the Milton schools moving towards a more unified approach. For example, when we met with some of the health educators, they do a great job, but one was saying, well, I do this, and the other one was saying, well, I do this. And is it consistent across the board, the issues related to this, as well as things like depression and other risky behaviors? So I think that that's where I would be really excited to see us be able to go ahead with the needs assessment of what we already do well, or what else we need to do, because I think that addresses some of those issues, Lori, that you bring up, the risks that we're all worried about, not just in Milton, but everywhere, and that they are very serious. And this is, you know, this is coming from DESE saying, schools, you're going to be held accountable for this. So it's a big task ahead of us.
Ms. Eberhardt?
I just to backtrack on Sheila's comment, that I thought the Pierce PTO did an excellent job. When I was a parent at Pierce, I went to the Joni Giltman, is that how you say her name? When she came and she presented about behaviors and talking to your teenagers, and she was so powerful for me as a parent, just giving me tools that I could say, oh, you know, don't do this. She says it, don't do that. Think about that. Sleepovers, what's in your house. I mean, she was just really helpful, and even just ways to communicate with your children when your children give you that cold shoulder and how you deal with that at that age.
Yep.
So that kind of engagement for parents, I mean, you know, certain parents are going to go to those types of things anyway, but they're wonderful tools for parents to have that in their pocket and remember those conversations that you can take out and talk to your own child. So using PTOs and other community groups in that way would be very helpful moving forward. She was really helpful to me as a parent.
Can I just add on to that?
Yep.
Yeah.
So the activities committee of the Milton Substance Abuse Coalition with Deborah, I just got an email from her about the next meeting date, because we're trying to plan the coalition, which that piece I just happen to be a member of, that's not a school committee thing, is planning in October for a forum for parents, and one of them is going to be, there's an organization that sets up, what's it called, Safe Room or something? Hidden in plain sight. And the parents come in and they have to try to find all the hiding places for drugs and alcohol and things like that. And so it actually sounds fun, so we might actually get a lot of parents there. But those kinds of things to engage parents, I think the coalition is working really hard to do. I know there's clergy that want to be involved. So I think that there's a lot of really positive things happening outside of the school system that's working with us. So Joni is a wonderful speaker. The issue we've talked about on health and wellness all these years is So you get the parents who are already interested, you get the parents who are already believing this, and we can't reach everybody, but it would be nice to try to reach more and more parents, and that's the goal. And this is a tough issue, but, you know, also parents looking at their own houses in terms of, one form that you organized many years ago, I was like, oh, you should look up the alcohol in your house. My kids were very young, I hadn't thought about that. And so because of Lori's forum many years ago, I locked up the alcohol in my house. Lock boxes for the pills, all those kinds of things. When we work together, we put out all those really good ideas. If you went and turned in your prescription drugs, Caroline was there with lock boxes you could get to lock up your prescription drugs. When we look at the rate of kids in Milton and across the state and across the country who have died from opiate overdoses, it's not a joke. I mean, it's very, very serious. So anything and everything we can do together, I think, is just so worthwhile and heading in the right direction. Even if we don't solve it today, we're trying to coordinate and collaborate and go in the right direction. Anyway.
So, thank you, Ms. Bagley-Jones, Dr. Spalding, Ms. Snowman. Great discussion.
Thank you for coming, you guys. Thank you.
Superintendent's report.
Very briefly, since we've met last in our email blast and in the Milton Times, we announced the appointment of Ms. Karen McDevitt to the Glover principalship. Very briefly, I'd like to recognize the screening committee of Dr. Elaine McNeil-Dramai, principal of the Tucker. I go to the head of the union, Margaret Gibbons, who then comes up with teacher representatives, Brian Powers, Mary McCarthy, and Mary Bobkin from the Glover School, Bernadette Butler, our science coordinator, Tracy Grandow, our administrative pupil personnel, and then I go to the PTO president, and I always say, so they don't think it's my favorite 3 parents or my favorite 3 teachers, they're all my favorites, but J.P. Plunkett, Anna Barker, and Catherine Beaumont Murphy. I want to compliment these individuals. There were 50 applications for the Glover principalship. They screen and read every application. They determine what they're looking for in the new principal. They brainstorm questions. We met, we determined which candidates we were going to interview, and I told them in many school districts, the superintendent would screen the applications, give a screening committee 10 applications and say, which 3 do you want to see? These individuals did their homework. They read letters of recommendation, introductory letters. They did a phenomenal job. One parent wrote me today and said that it was the most beneficial experience she's had this year, which I said they own the experience. And then we brought the finalists to 3 school committee members, Dr. Elaine Craighead, Margaret Eberhardt, and Sheila Varela served with principals Concannon, Jett, Spalding, Redden, Bernadette, our curriculum coordinator, Janet Sheehan, Glenn, and myself, and we brought the finalists in, and we did reference checks. Often we do site visits or have the individuals come to the Milton Public Schools, and I'm very happy to tell you that we've appointed Karen McDevitt around your schedule during the summer. Perhaps we'll bring our new Glover principal in to the chairman's suggestion. I'm working around having her do some visits to the Glover before the end of school. I had a request today from the Glover teachers to have a small reception, and I know the Glover parents will too. So I'd like to publicly recognize and thank Dr. Sheila Cuxtis for her outstanding work leading the Glover School, her work on the leadership team with parents, students, and teachers, and as we bring the Glover into this new chapter of its leadership, we're very, very excited. A second position, it's hard for people to even verbalize that Dr. Noreen Dimer-Badette's going to retire as a music teacher and a music leader. We had a similar screening committee of administrators, teachers, and parents, and they did the interviews, and I'm very pleased to announce, as I did in my email blast, that Dawn Sykes, middle school choral director, has been appointed to the new, this position is K-12 music, K-12 visual arts, and 9 through 12 family and consumer studies. and Dawn Sykes. We've sat down with her. She's very, very excited. She's finished her leadership work at Curry College. She has a long and very stellar career in music in California, music education in Alberta, Canada. She brings a tremendous amount of experience and leadership and natural talent to this position. So again, big shoes to fill, but for anyone who has worked, and I see some smiles at this table with Dawn Sykes, and I too will bring her to this table for all of you to meet and the viewing public to be able to feel that they know the new Fine Arts Director K through 12 in the Milton Public Schools. We're setting up. We'll be talking to the school committee. We've posted the PE health position, pre-K through 12, Ms. Everhart, and the athletic director. So we'll be talking to the school committee, the head of the union, and the boosters for the athletic director and the PTOs for parent representatives, which seems to work out very, very well. Very briefly, last Friday, I don't know if anyone here was at Great East. 250 PS Middle School students went to the Great East Festival last Friday. Grade 7 and 8 band, gold medal. Grade 7 and 8 strings, gold medal. Grade 7 and 8 girls chorus, platinum medal. And grade 7 and 8 boys chorus, who I heard, they were exceptional. They were all exceptional, but platinum medal. So somebody sent me a video, so in my email blast, I might lend it to the Times if they're interested. We're going to put it out. But I had parents call me who chaperoned on the event, and they said it was very, very moving.
So just a technical question. Is platinum higher or lower than that?
Oh, yeah.
The
That's the highest.
So platinum's the highest.
Yeah, I just want to speak. So my son is part of that boys chorus, and I have to say.
didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, and multi-talented. But I have to tell you that he is not necessarily what you call, he is in chorus, but he's maybe not as actively involved as his sister is. But I have not seen him more excited about, I thought it was just the fact that they were going to Canopy Lake Park later. But I couldn't get over how excited he was about competing in the event, how kind of happy he was about the platinum, and, you know, full of information, which is not what my usual 13-year-old son is like about school events when he comes home, and talking about, you know, how excited they were because, you know, Ms. Sykes said this is, you know, it's a very difficult competition, and that, you know, we'll see, we'll be lucky if we get gold, you know, because you're not to be disappointed and to do your best work. And he said, you know, he said, you know, we all think Ms. Sykes was really happy and really impressed that we got platinum. So I was just excited to see someone who I wouldn't, I don't know, necessarily categorize as a song and dance guy, really be so excited about those district festivals and the experience about being in it, and really proud of like the all boys chorus, because as he told me, they can't remember when an all boy middle school chorus won platinum. So I just think it was a great experience for all. Yeah, as a parent who was part of that. Yeah, it's great.
May I ask Ms. Varela, who's more capable than I am on this, to talk about the upcoming PS players?
Yes, so the spring production is going to be quite, I've never seen it, but I've heard about it. And it is a farce, a take on the traditional Cyrano de Bergerac story, but it is called Cyrano de Bergerac. And it is the story in modern times of Cyrano de Bergerac, set with very modern day pop tunes as the choral background. So I hear that it is a lot of fun and very, very funny, a lot of parts for a lot of kids, and the type of show that will be enjoyable for pre-K, Ms. Eberhardt, all the way up to the senior citizens in Milton. So it's this Thursday night at 7, Friday night at 7, and Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. It's a great take. I believe it's $10 a person, and you can buy tickets at Pierce and at the door, and I think it's going to be a great way to end the school year. So I highly recommend everyone try to take it in.
question?
Ms. Bailey Jones?
Not to rain on the music parade, but in terms of Ms. Sykes, who I think is a wonderful person for this job, how is she going to be able to handle 3 departments in terms of music, art, and family consumer? And it's big shoes to fill, but also that's an incredible job to have 3.
Right. And so the lead in here is over the years in our, when we've made budget cuts, Ms. Varela, we're doing the history that you asked about the art, music, library, and physical education at the elementary, and we'll report out next week. But for the viewing public to know, we had an English department head at Milton High and a social studies department head. Now we have a fine arts director. We had an art director at one time, a music director, and a family and consumer, and we consolidated those into one extraordinary leader. We've asked you now about the PE, health, and athletic director. I've researched the PE health, and if there are 349 communities in the state, there are 349 models. Some are in the union, out of the union, stipend, and so we think for the Milton Public Schools to separate those going forward. So Dr. Noreen Diamond-Burdette was very talented. The person also, it's good for the public to know, teaches 2 classes. Dr. Noreen Diamond-Burdette chose to teach 3. Dawn Sykes, we've asked her first year to only teach 2. These are dedicated professionals and working collaboratively under Assistant Superintendent Sheehan and with the principals. She understood the position. The interview questions were around the arts and the wood and auto and the music. And we think that she will actually, if it's possible, bring those areas to a new level.
So she has wood, auto, sewing,
Cooking.
cooking,
Art and
visual
music.
art, and music. And she teaches 2 classes on
Yes.
Okay, I'm glad she has that kind of energy. That's great. Because my question is always, how do we get the visual arts on the same page with the music program? So it sounds like that will be able to happen.
And so I should bring, I've talked about in my email blast, the artwork and the competitions that these students go into. And Michael Wyatt's piece, again, that's a natural talent, but it was grown in the Milton Public Schools. Was it 1 out of 200,000 in New York City recognized, and all of the opportunities that we give those students who want to go on and study art in their career. But we're very, very sensitive to representing all those disciplines.
I know you are.
Ms. Varela?
So, and I just also, for the viewing public and, or people who watch this on Saturday, while they're doing laundry like I do.
You watch this again?
Well, when I wasn't a school committee member, if I missed it on Tuesday nights, that's when I would always watch it.
She needs a life.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I don't watch us again, but I'm just saying when I was a non-school committee member. Anyway, I do want to bring up the point that, we hear a lot, I hear a lot from people in the community about the schools being so top-heavy in administration, top-heavy in administration, top-heavy in administration. So I think that this is a good point when we just showed here that when you have budget cuts and you have constraints, that tough choices need to be made. And I think that we're lucky that we have strong administrators in this public school that are taking on multiple tasks and multiple departments. It's not ideal, but it's the kind of thing, I'm going to speak to what Dr. Donahue said. Well, what do? Do you cut the face time in the classroom, or do you make an administrator oversee 2 or 3 things instead of 1? So just want people to be mindful of that this is a big area in education, not just us, but everybody, who then makes a choice to say, well, why don't we combine, like you say, English and history or English, whatever. So just for people to know that administrators and, Ms. Gormley and all the superintendents, it's how we think outside the box and what's the best way to deal with cost constraints and decisions to be made. So just want to say that it's a perfect example that I think that we're far from top-heavy. So just want to point that out.
So very briefly, James Jett and I had family commitments, but the school system was well represented by all of the school committee. Mr. Walker, thank you for your remarks. And Assistant Superintendent Sheehan, phenomenal graduation. Reports are that the graduation was phenomenal. The prom might have even been better for some people, and especially those who saw a celebrity outside of the venue. And again, I think the awards night where school committee members were represented there, and at the boosters night, it couldn't have been a more moving night. On awards night, $110,000 given out in scholarships and awards to from this generous community. And the boosters, I always say, not being an athlete, I sit there in awe, 650 students going up, and I always say they think that they're the only student up there being recognized for that, being a lacrosse player or that hockey player. And I sat there very proud of each one of them, dressed appropriately, very proud, up on that podium, a time that they'll never forget. So to the high school principal, who we have to give credit to, the high school teachers, the coaches, the parents and guardians, and most of all, this class of seniors. And in my last email blast, I've shared with the school committee, we listed the colleges and universities that the students have been accepted to, where they're going, and the list of awards. And I've received more comments from parents and guardians. And again, a lot of parents of elementary students who understand that this is a 13-year experience, and this is a competitive world. And I want everyone to go to the Milton Public Schools, and I want all parents and guardians to understand the options that are available for their children within this school district, and just where this school district can prepare their children to go off to, anywhere they want to. So in that note, I want to end. Last night I watched the selectmen's meeting, and the selectmen recognized our girls' track team. And they want to invite our girls' track team on the 22nd, so I quickly came to school and said, oh, Mr. Walker, is it all right if we get the track team in here on the 15th, not to be outdone by the selectmen? But this is very poignant, if we could just take a minute. This is from James Jett to the superintendent. Charles Smith, you met him the other day, Mary, is a freshman. This past weekend, he came in first in the state for the 100 meters. He tied for the third place in the high jump with a height of 6 feet 6 inches. This is very impressive considering he's only 5'4" himself. He is currently, is it 0.03 inches away from qualifying for the nationals that will be held in North Carolina. Smith Charles hopes to get his qualifying score this coming weekend in New Britain, Connecticut. As I mentioned to you when you met him, he was named the Patriot Ledger Athlete in the winter season. More impressively, Mary, I just learned this morning that he will be named Boston Globe All-Scholastic in the coming weeks. In fact, he goes to get his picture taken tomorrow, Mary, for this honor. The boys' relay team came in third place. They should have been better, but remember, the prom was Friday night and the events were held Saturday. Verbatim. All 4 relay members were at the prom late on Friday night with the high school principal. Now, girls' track. Tom Shaw will be the Boston Globe's Division III Coach of the Year. Mary, I just learned that today. On Saturday, June 4th, the team pulled off a stunning victory at the MIAA All-State Outdoor Championship in Westfield. After trailing behind the meet leaders most of the day, this was in the Globe, but this is written by James, the Milton girls rallied in the final few events and finished the meet tied for first place with Tewksbury. The victory was a true team effort with amazing performances by the Milton girls, including a third place finish in the 400 meter by freshman Elsie O'Leary, a fourth place finish in the mile by sophomore Bridget Mitchell, and a fourth place finish in the pentathlon by Jessie Awala. However, the big moments in the meet came down to the last 2 events, by the 4x100 meter and the 4x400 meter relays. The 4x100 relay of Abigail Jean-Baptiste, Athena Perrier, Paola Charles, and Miss Williams pulled out a large second-place performance that provided a much-needed 8 points for the team. Then the 4x400 relay of Alexis Balash, Joshie Kuzmo, Gillette O'Leary, and Elsie O'Leary won the 4x400 and the best time of 3:54, sealing the tied victory. Let me just get my last page here. Well, I can tell you the ending of the story. It was in the Globe, and they won, and they tied. And if Maura Downs was here, I was going to have her read it. She tells the story at 5 o'clock, texting her sister-in-law. This is all very sad, but they've had a wonderful season, and then she finds out they won. And they were in the Globe, so the chairman has agreed that we'll bring our women athletes and Smith Charles, if it's all right with you, and recognize them. And when I took the liberty of asking Smith Charles, he wrote it down in his busy calendar. You're right between the Globe and the Herald and the Patriot Ledger and the Milton Times. And they really feel it's an honor. And I have to tell you, to think that all these student athletes aren't seniors. And I brought Tom Shaw in today, and I was sitting next to Mr. Walker at the Boosters event. He introduced the team behind him as the 2017 state champions. So lots to be proud of, wonderful opportunities for students, and a phenomenal finish.
Oh, my God.
So-
Nice story.
Wow.
In my capacity as chair, I would suggest that you forward that email to the selectmen with the title, "Some Other Track Achievements You Didn't Know About."
It's fabulous.
Thank you.
Moving to the chair's report, you have the revised calendar that we talked about. I think it is now ready for approval. I think that there's still some things we're discussing with the superintendent regarding the site council presentations and some objectives that we talked about last meeting, making those more of a discussion and perhaps moving them up in the schedule. But I think for now, this is ready for approval, and I would move approval of the fiscal 17 school committee calendar, or school calendar.
Second.
Does anybody have a calendar I can look at?
You
Or
got
does
it. It's
anybody
in
know
the-
what date August 22nd is? Day of the week?
I thought we
talked about it
decided
last
everyone
time.
could make that.
I know, I'm looking at it,
I think
just wanted,
it's Monday or Tuesday, I
We
think.
moved
It's a
it
Monday.
because,
It's Monday.
okay, so
Yeah.
maybe the Monday is fine. Thank you.
we moved it because you said that the 25th wasn't good, right?
Yes,
Right.
that's correct.
So I think we're good there, ladies and gentlemen. So we've moved and seconded. Any discussion?
What time are we thinking for the retreat? Do we have that?
We talked about 4 hours mid-afternoon, so probably 3 to 7 or 4 to 8, something like that. All in favor? It's unanimous. The second item is actually good news, and here I'm asking for your approval on the creation of the PE Health Department Head. We don't have to vote the money because this is budget neutral, I'm pleased to report. That's because the superintendent got agreement from the union to reduce the number of days that the athletic director works. Those savings will create a stipend for, we believe, existing staff who have the necessary qualifications and certifications to move into the PE department head, PE health department head position, and that stipend will be paid for by those savings. So budget neutral, but we're asking for your approval of the creation of the PE health department head position. So I would move your approval of that.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
My
Ms.
only
Bagley
comment
Jones?
is that it is going back to the existing format. We didn't create a new position. I just want to be clear
Yep.
that we did not create a new position, and that we were able to save the money to do this, but also it's the way it always was a while ago. Just want to make that clear.
Right. So as not to confuse things, it's a new position in the budget.
Right,
It wasn't in the fiscal 17 budget.
but this position was split. That's what I'm trying to.
We're asking for your approval to create this new position in the budget.
Okay,
New title, budget neutral.
okay. And I just wasn't sure of the budget neutral part. That's what I was trying to clarify. for the viewing public.
What weren't you sure about?
I'm sure of it. I'm trying to clarify for the viewing public that budget neutral means we're going back to what it used to be and saving money, we're able to do this, as Mary talked about. That's all. I don't want people to think we made and are paying for a new budget line item.
I started by saying that the savings from the reduction in days pays for the stipend. for
I
the-
understand. I just
Okay.
was trying to clarify that so that it was clear to other people.
Okay. On the motion, all in favor? It's unanimous. So, underscoring the continuing and burgeoning popularity of the Milton Public Schools, the superintendent has determined that the Collycott will require an additional kindergarten section. That's because, given the enrollment numbers and those that we project based on recent history, what will occur over the summer, that we will in fact require a new kindergarten section. So this is really for information. We don't need school committee approval to create a kindergarten section, but I just wanted to make sure you were all aware, and if you have any questions, Ms. Varela?
So I just want to, the reporting of this, I just want to ask, how are they doing on space? And that's just my main concern. So how are we doing on space? And I think, Chairman Walker, I know that you were on, that committee, but what's going on with that, and how is that being handled in the district? Like, because I know that there's anticipation with population surveys and all that, we're busting at the seams, and more people are moving into my neighborhood with 4 kids, 5 and under. So, I mean, it is what it is. So I'm just wondering, is that something that's on the horizon and being discussed and met? Because I know that's been an issue, but like for the new kindergarten, is there room for it, or what's happening?
So if I might, if Assistant Superintendent Pavlicek wasn't in Stockholm, he'd be explaining that 2 years ago, we carried 16 sessions. So we're very conscious of daily monitoring the enrollment numbers. And today, we have the same number that we have at the, currently. And we have a history of 10 to 15 more kindergartners during the summer. And so we monitor, you understand how we have these bubbles. So the one room is at the Collycott Cunningham, and that provides that we still have art and music rooms at the elementaries. But as the principals or Dr. Noreen Diamond-Redette were here, they would tell you that at the Collycott Cunningham, we could actually use 2 art and 2 music, because the kindergarten and the first grades have to have art and music in their classrooms. But I'm working hard to always preserve that art and music room for the quality of art and music. And we know that we have actually only 1 room, and they would have used it for an additional art/music, but that will be the kindergarten room next year. So they'll still have an art and music room at the Collycott Cunningham. But as of today, that is the only available classroom in the district. And so as I speak to groups, I explain that our preschool program, our special ed preschool program is growing. It was historically 1 class. We're now to 5 classes, and our preschool program at Tucker. And right now, this will use the last available classroom at the elementaries.
Wow.
People will say build and they will come. And our enrollment is increasing.
Wow.
Ms. Bagley Jones, did you have?
Oh, no, I was going to ask the same question, but then what's our enrollment now, as of now? Do you know?
Well, we have a meeting next week, so I'll give you the
Okay.
exact enrollment.
Okay.
I'll fill out, we used to give them up when Mary Kelly was here. I'll start to give you the enrollment sheets in every one of your packets so that you can
Okay.
monitor the enrollment yourself.
That would be great.
I'll give you one next week.
Dr. Donahue?
So just to clarify, does this bring us to 16 strands?
Yes.
For that kindergarten class?
And so that, the last time we had 16 was 2 years ago. And for Ms. Eberhardt and myself and Ms. Sheehan, I would personally advocate, I shouldn't speak for them. Mr. Walker said it's my rule, Gormley rule, but 20 to 22, with the aides being .8. Again, the aides were full-time. We reduced them to .8. And so we had to add this class because the kindergartens were going over 23 to 25, and then looking for what happens during the summer.
Thank you, Superintendent Gormley. Next is just an update on fiscal 17 subcommittees. New member Eberhard has now set a record for the number of subcommittees one serves on, but this simply adds Ms. Eberhard to the policy and transportation subcommittees. So I would move those revisions to our subcommittee list.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Dr. Donahue, Policy Subcommittee.
All right. So we'll lead with the security camera policy. This will be a second reading and a vote. So when we last left off, we were talking about cameras in the classrooms specifically, and circled back to our comments from council. And it was their suggestion that we keep the language as is because it preserves the intent of what we're doing, which is we're not putting cameras in classrooms. And it's language that's been used and accepted at peer institutions and by the state and the federal government. So with that in mind, we're going to keep things the way they are. And I'll move that we accept policy ECAF, the security camera policy, as before you.
Second. Any discussion? Thank you for that smile, Dr. Craighead. All on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Is somebody keeping track of moved, seconded?
am.
Thank you.
All right, so next on the docket is our school approval policy. So, as we're all aware, we're sort of in the process of looking at a potential new school in town, a new elementary school. And there are guidelines from DESE, which you should have in your packet. It's the small font handout. And if you go to the back of that handout, there is a sample policy that DESE suggests. So using that sample policy, and I have to say, when we started to put together this policy, we looked at a number of peer districts that we typically look at, and none of them had a particularly robust policy. So we cast our net a little wider in the state, and we found a couple of districts in the state who had more robust policies on point. So we took what we liked from those policies. We took a fair bit from the DESE policy here, and we crafted the policy before you for the first reading. So I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has. I'm open to suggestions or comments.
Dr. Craighead?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I think it looks really good. I wondered if it were possible in Part 1, General, to perhaps quote or in some way paraphrase the section from the original DESE document before the subheading that says school committee approval is neither an evaluation of program quality nor an endorsement of any particular school. Because some of this, as the particulars are outlined, could be read as an evaluation of program quality. So I think stating that very particularly at the beginning might be a really good idea.
Can I just ask, where is that?
It's in the DESE original, it's in the there are two paragraphs, then an indented quote, and then another paragraph. It's in that third
Oh, I see.
full paragraph at the bottom, right before the subheading.
All right.
And I had one more question. Under Part 4, reapplication, It says if the application for a proposed school is denied based upon deficiency or deficiencies in sections, blah, 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 above, reapplication may be made in 4 months. Is that indefinitely, like every 4 months you can reapply? Because it seems to me that the workload then for the superintendent would be tremendous.
I would agree. This is a lot of work for the superintendent and her team. So
Yeah.
I would suggest that if you go back to, I think it's section 2, on the first page, Roman numeral 2, the second paragraph, the review period shall be approximately 12 months in length. So I would expect that it would give us another 16 months. It would give us the 4 months after theoretically a program is rejected, and then they would reapply after those 4 months, and then it would give us a 12-month period to evaluate their program, after which time, it would be an up or down vote again, presumably. But to answer your question, whether a program can continue to reapply, is it 1 strike, you're out, 2 strikes, you're out? The way it's written, you could. I would imagine it would be tough to limit the number of reapplications someone could have. You could continue to change facets of the program on an ongoing basis and say it's a new program or find a new space. There were, in the sample policy and in our peer district policies, there were no provisions for reapplication. So this is something that we're doing that other people are not, or something that we've thought of that they haven't. But I'm open to, if you have specific suggestions.
I don't. I realize the difficulty here,
Yeah.
but I'm wondering if it might be possible to put some sort of, after that first reapplication, there will be no other applications considered for 48, however, 24 months or something. I don't know, because I just feel like if somebody is denied and then that they could just sort of ad infinitum continue to apply, and that would
Right.
put an undue
Year after year
burden,
after
I
year after
think.
year.
In your research, is it okay if I ask? In your research, how often do things get denied? I mean, when you talk to other districts,
So when we've talked to other districts, they have said, "Oh, that's wonderful. Tell us how you write the policy, so we can copy yours."
I see.
It's not an issue that comes up with great frequency. So
Okay.
I don't have an answer for you on that.
Yeah, I just, as a member of the policy, I just want to echo Dr. Donahue that, this does not happen a lot, new schools don't open that often, and so Dr. Donahue, as the chair, has done a really great job in the research along with superintendents to analyze. So, your query is an excellent one, but again, a lot of districts don't even speak to it about reapplication. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's good, but it is the kind of thing. So if it was denied, then 4 months later they could apply, and then we would have another year to, evaluate. But to echo Dr. Donahue, I mean, I'm open to, maybe adding or changing, but I would like input from maybe other school committee members about what they think about it.
So so the process will be that the committee that we appointed the last time is going to review the materials from this applying school. And they're going to come to the school committee with a recommendation. Is that the way that it's going to work? And then we as a school committee vote on the approval of this school. Is that how it
Yes,
works?
although, in simple terms, yes.
Okay, in simple terms.
However, the superintendent and the rest of that team have already been doing a significant amount of work.
Right.
And I think that there may be an interim step where we ask the creator of this school to come in and answer some questions for that team and the school committee.
Okay.
Because I think that, it may not be a one-step process, it may be a 2 or 3 step process. But I think to give the proper amount of credit to the work that's already been done, I think we've got some interim questions that need to be answered.
So, okay, one more. So when you go through this policy, sorry, and there's this whole section here where, so someone from our committee here is looking to see that they have under physical plant all these certificates?
So there's a division of labor. Our team is looking at whether the curriculum tracks with, and this is the language that's in the first
Right.
paragraph, whether the instructional program equals that of our Milton Public Schools in thoroughness, efficiency, and progress made.
Correct.
So they're assessing that.
Okay.
So the questions about certificates would be, we would refer that to the building inspector of the town.
Okay, and they would report back
Right.
that these were all in working order?
Right.
Okay.
So, to build on your comments, Chair Walker, I would expect at some theoretical final meeting, we would get a piece of paper or a folder with, something that said, subsection A signed off by our administrative team. Subsection B signed off by our administrative team. Subsection C, and there are copies of, the elevator permit, the lead testing,
Right.
the occupancy permit, and all of that. So we can, that's not their job
Right.
to put that together. That's, that's on the opener of the school to
Right.
then get those documents and give them to us.
It's an interesting process because in like I don't want to say in a different setting, like these are jobs the state, like this is something that you're applying for licensure, the state, someone from the state, like looks at all this stuff and says, here's your certificate of whatever occupation or whatever. It's an interesting process that would be the school committee's
Yes.
responsibility.
Ms. Bagley Jones?
And I just have to say, Mary, I forget, who's on the team with you?
Holly.
Janet Sheehan, Holly Concanon, and Amy Gale.
Yep.
Okay. And I know we have to vote for this, I mean, it's sort of like a done deal, we have to vote for this, but I'm just saying, for the record, how uncomfortable I still am with this, even though I know we have to do it. I mean, I just think that, one, the workload on us, but then having been associated with opening a school before, as I know you have too,
Yeah.
there's a lot of responsibility in this, and signing off, I know you said the building inspector's gonna do the other things, the fire inspection, the safety, but it feels like an awful lot to put our names on it. So there's nothing we can do, but
Yes.
I'm not happy about
Yeah.
it. And I appreciate the policy looking at it.
Yes, wonderful
It's
policy,
nothing to do with you guys.
No, I'm not,
Yeah, I mean,
Throwing it.
yeah, I think we're probably all in agreement. It's to echo, it's an overwhelming task, but, if it's the law,
Yep.
it's, it is what it is. And so we have to.
Could you say that again, please?
It is, I mean, right? It is what it is. So yeah, even though it's an awful
It
undertaking,
is,
so I say.
I get it.
Yeah,
I was
right?
just making an editorial comment.
Right, but we have to do it, right? So the thing is because there is somebody who wants to open a school in this town, it's by law, it's school committee's job to do this. So I think that, hey, it's policy committee, right? So we have to do this, we have to put a policy in place and then do it. And we will learn of maybe what works and what doesn't. And being on policy committee for the past year, I learned that we revisit past policies all the time and we revise them. So I feel as though that we need to, I welcome everyone's comments. I think, Elaine, your comment, that was a great query, but, those are things that we can adjust and put in, but we need to do it. We need to make a policy so that they can move forward and we can do it. And then we can revise it as needed, I think.
Dr. Donahue?
and I'm sorry, I was, as we're going through this, I was thinking back to the final section here, which allows us to charge them for our work. So that may be a deterrent to serial applicants, because, I know our teachers and administrators have a professional rate, and, we haven't set a fee schedule for it, or the administration hasn't, but, that would, I imagine, be a deterrent.
Sorry. go ahead,
Dr. Craig, yeah?
To Ms. Varela's comment, I totally agree. I believe in Bill Belichick's life philosophy as well. But what I think here is that, yes, we absolutely have to have a policy, but the policy that we create is going to be the one that governs this particular process that we're in. And so I have no feeling right now about aye or nay votes on the school. That's not what I'm saying. But if the vote were no, and if the person were determined, and if the money wasn't enough of a deterrent, I think we really need to have something in place so that Mary Gormley, and her staff, whose plate is already, overloaded, it's not a constant thing. I really think some sort of time limit or some sort of time constraint may be a really good idea here.
So I have two thoughts. One is I think that's a very good question. I think it may in fact be a legal question.
I was going to say that, yeah.
As to whether, given that we have statutory authority to approve, whether we have any ability to limit that, limit how that approval is exercised. That is, can we say we'll only take an application once every 12 months? So I think, why don't we work on that with council? I've been an advocate of the accelerated policy approval process, but this may be an instance where a third reading wouldn't hurt.
And because I just think, because I have gone through this process as a person, and there's two avenues. They want to open a business and promote education in this way, but I would like to hear from them, and just from my own experience doing this, just looking at the things we're improving, that you're saying that they're going to have someone who's going to look at qualifications, to do background record checks, make sure people are fingerprinted. I mean, those are very important things to make sure that the school has solid in place what they're going to do. For me, as someone responsible for other people's children every day, that's a very important piece for me, as well as the overall safety of the building, which is the second thing that I constantly think about. So it would be nice to hear from them and to hear firsthand what are their plans in those regards.
Right. The other thing we might think about, as evidenced by the schedule we've been put under, we received this application in April for a school that's proposed to open in September. We might also investigate whether we could say that for a school that's to open the following September, applications must be submitted before December 31st of the previous year.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
Oh, wow, I got a lot of support.
that's a good one. No, it's good. It's good to have a time frame.
Right.
Quite frankly, I would give ourselves a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say.
You see me and raise me.
I will definitely see.
Okay, all right, so,
I have a question. So can we bring this back to legal and then bring it to policy and then bring it back?
yeah, the
See
other.
you in August.
Right. The other thing that I talked with Dr. Donahue about is having MASC General Counsel look at it as well, so we'll do that too. Okay.
All right, so first reading in the books, second reading, TBD. All right, so the next policy is our commemoration policy, and as you're all aware, this was a very difficult year for the Milton Public Schools. We lost several members of our community, and it sort of brought to the fore that it would be very helpful for parents and administrators and teachers and students, to a certain extent, to have a unified policy discussing how we deal with the commemoration of a passing of a member of our community. So Superintendent Gormley reached out to, I'm forgetting. Thank you. Who deals a lot with our district in times of crisis and grief, and she supplied us with a number of, I think, very, very important, very critical thoughts that we then took and molded into this policy. So while you're refamiliarizing yourself with it, I'd like to say, this is a difficult subject or subjects to talk about and to think about. And I appreciate her, Marie Trazi's input, but also the whole subcommittee. This was a lot of work to put together, and it wasn't always easy work. So thank you.
Any discussion?
So, in the absence of discussion? Anyone?
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I do have some thoughts about, may I speak? Sorry.
you
I keep
can.
forgetting. I do have some thoughts about the policy, and I'm not sure, this is just a first sort of reading of the policy, because there are some things in the policy that I wonder about. I know we're trying to sort of set some guidelines around loss and grief, but some of the policy seems a little stringent to me in terms of the time, some of the things that we mentioned about no vigils, no this, no that. I would like a little more time to think about some of these thoughts and maybe talk about it with the policy subcommittee. I know I really commend you for your work. I can't even imagine how hard it was to sit down and put all this on paper. There's some thoughts I have. I'm a little confused, I guess, so some of it talks about no lasting things. So what about scholarships and what about, I don't understand that piece then. I know it doesn't affect things that are already in place. I read that in the policy, but going forward, we wouldn't do that? We wouldn't have those things at awards night? We wouldn't have those?
If I might, you know what might be valuable? Maria Trozzi, to Dr. Donahue's point, was at Columbine and travels across the country. And she's an expert and published in death and dying and building resiliency in children. And she goes into school districts. So she offered to meet with the school committee, or if we had a policy subcommittee and individuals had questions. But from my experience, and we'll answer any of your detailed questions. The scholarships will still be there, but every one of the issues that she's addressed and that are clarified in this commemoration policy will help us in the Milton Public Schools and when tragedies occur. So if it's all right with Dr. Donahue, and Maria Trozzi, as a friend of the Milton Public Schools, said that she would come perhaps at our policy subcommittee and answer any questions, whatever your pleasure is.
So I think that that's a great idea, and as is Ms. Eberhardt's, that if school committee members have thoughts or input on this policy, they should attend the next policy subcommittee meeting.
Great.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I think it would be excellent, and I think to echo, it'd be great for Ms. Trozzi to be there, because we've questioned all the same things you've questioned, and I think that her guidance is excellent in explanation. So I think it would be really great if you guys come, and then, yeah.
Ms. Bagley.
I know I went to one where we talked about this and we looked at other policies from other communities that were much shorter. As, I'm sort of in a unique position here, but also as a school social worker, some of these things make a lot of sense to me, and others of them seem very, I think Maria Trozzi is wonderful. I think she does great work, but they're a little too, okay, you can buy equipment, you can do this, it's too.
I have to tell you, if you don't mind, and when we go into the subcommittee, these are the questions that I'm asked all the time. And so this policy is really going to help the Milton Public Schools and help our staff and our students and their families. So in a policy subcommittee, we can further deliberate and explain some of these.
Dr. Craighead.
Can we find out when the next policy subcommittee will be meeting?
So that, if I may, Chair Walker, that is in part related to our July school committee schedule. So
All right.
One follows the other to a certain extent.
Okay.
And then
Ms. Bagley.
the policy meeting I went to, there were several other examples that were much shorter.
Yes.
And I understand that this is helpful for the schools, for the staff, to give parents guidance, but I have some pretty serious concerns about it that I did express at the last policy subcommittee meeting. So, and that's as a school social worker, not as a parent. So I'm not sure if I want to come back and do it again, but I did share some thoughts about what I thought was sort of a little too rigid on some of these ideas.
And your input was appreciated. I agree. I think initially, or there are several of the of the comments and suggestions that we got that were more restrictive that didn't make it into this.
Yeah.
And I have to say, quite frankly, that when I was at the senior awards night last week, I was thinking of the ramifications of this on future scholarships, and I was thinking, you know, as the person who wrote this together, maybe there's some elements that could use some revision. But I will say that the policies that are a lot shorter, some of them are a lot more restrictive. It's just, you know, it's a kind of a you can't do anything kind of policy. But I'll dig some of those up and bring them to the next subcommittee meeting.
Can I make one more point?
Sure.
So around the suicide part, I mean, these all, for me as a clinical social worker, these make total sense. I'm not sure, I mean, what's missing for me are things like, we can't say, the school can't say it was a suicide unless the parents have
Right.
said. I mean, is that in here and I'm missing it? Those are the kinds of things I think of as a policy. What schools are able to say, what
Right.
teachers are able to say. This stuff, the school-based workshop and all those things are wonderful, but I don't know if they're a policy.
Right.
They're suggestions for practices. It's not a policy that we have to hold a school-based workshop. I think it would be a great idea, but it's not a policy per se.
So I want to try not to do the discussion of
That's
the
fine.
policy here, but
That's fine. But if you could look at the
duly noted.
suicide policy part of it, that I think would be helpful.
wellness policy.
Wellness policy, all right. So this one, I know, it's busy man. So the wellness policy, as the Health and Wellness Subcommittee is welcome to jump in at any point, but this is a policy crafted largely by them that, as you can see from the fine print at the very end, was last approved, reapproved in 2012. So it came to our attention earlier this month that when we were applying for, I believe it was a federal grant, that some of our language was out of date with the federal dietary requirements that were no longer allowed. We have to specifically say we don't serve snacks that are bad for you from midnight on, as opposed to whatever the previous time limit was. So that language has been updated, and I would suggest that this is a candidate for our rapid approval series here. So as chair of a subcommittee, I would give my assent to that, and I would look to my colleagues to my right.
Sorry.
Comment?
Ms. Bagley-Jones.
So Jackie Morgan is responsible for this, and she's brought it to Health and Wellness every year. She's been really on top of it, and it's pretty amazing the job that she does, so I just have to give her a shout out. And that also just the only thing that changed was the red area there, and she is so on top of this, it's unbelievable. So I just had to say thank you to her.
So Vice Chair Donahue, I think we have to approve the use of our accelerated process first.
All right.
And then the policy itself, if we get that approval. So I would move that we invoke the accelerated policy process that we discussed with regard to this policy.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Walker, seconded by Varela. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Okay. Dr. Donahue.
Well, so now I would move that we approve the amended Milton Public Schools Wellness Policy, policy IHBG.
Second. Any discussion? On the motion, all in favor? It's unanimous.
Yes, good job.
All right.
Good
So,
policy.
two things. One, I would have to commend the work of the policy committee, Dr. Donahue, Ms. Varela, and Ms. Bagley-Jones, who just recently stepped off. This has been by far the most productive policy subcommittee we've had.
Yeah, good job.
I'm, in some sense, sad to say, including the years that I served on the policy subcommittee, but this is, the work that you've done in such a short amount of time is nothing short of amazing, so thank you. One more point on that. I understand that the policy subcommittee may take another look at the employment of school relatives policy, employment of school committee relatives policy. If that does occur, I believe that Ms. Varela and I would have to recuse ourselves both from any discussion of that policy and from a subsequent vote on the policy if the policy subcommittee makes that recommendation. Because we might have a potential interest in a change in that policy.
Okay.
So just a technical point of information. With that, I don't think we have any citizens speak.
Well, can I
Yep.
just, I do need to make a point. So, well, then that would be Margaret too, because she has teenagers?
Only if she believes that there's a potential for a relative of hers to work for the Milton Public Schools.
Oh, I see. Okay, all right, I just, yeah, okay.
Next meeting agenda items?
Yeah, I'd like us to consider a resolution at our
Yes.
next meeting. A resolution against raising the cap on charter schools, and I have a kind of a draft of a resolution that I'm going to bring and have us discuss.
Well, we'll do two things. I did talk with Dr. Craighead about this. I'm going to check in with MASC to see if they have any guidance, positions, recommendations, and we'll get both the information on what is an upcoming ballot question out to you in advance, as well as perhaps a potential resolution.
Yes.
So more to
I'm
come.
just kind of a little confused about do we
There-
have to do a vote as a school committee? I'm
Well,
confused.
We
there are
might.
many- oh.
Okay.
The question is whether, and this actually goes to some of the information I handed out the last time from the Office of Campaign and Political Finance. But there's a ballot question that has to do with increasing or changing the cap on charter schools.
Right, okay, I knew that, yeah.
Dr. Craighead's point was that could have an impact on public school funding, and raises the question as to whether we should take a position on that ballot question.
Okay.
So that's, yeah.
There are 50 school districts in the Commonwealth that have, the school committees have made resolutions against that ballot initiative. So, yeah, we wouldn't be the first if we
Okay,
did.
yeah, okay, good to know.
And on the next agenda, the track teams. And Ms. Varela had asked, and it's a very brief presentation from Blue Hills Bank on financial literacy before school got out.
Okay. Great. So we have, I'm about to make a motion regarding executive session, but we have Chief Wells, Sergeant Jack Richmond, and Bill Ritchie, who's our Director of Consolidated Facilities, here for the executive session discussion. But while we're in open session, I wanted to say to the chief and to Sergeant Richmond and Bill Ritchie, the work that you've done with us over the last 3 years on safety and security has been nothing short of amazing. And I know from my participation on the Norfolk District Attorney's School Security Task Force that we are well ahead of almost every other school district in the Commonwealth. And we couldn't have accomplished that without your partnership, without your guidance, and without your leadership. So on behalf of the Milton School Committee and the Milton Public Schools, I just wanted to say thank you. We couldn't have done it without you.
Thank you.
So with that, I will move that we move to executive session, not to return to public session, for the purpose of discussing a memorandum of understanding with the Milton Police Department and the deployment of security devices, the discussion of which in public session would be detrimental to our overall security program.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This is a roll call vote. Ms. Varela,
Yes,
a little hesitation there.
I'm sorry, what did you ask me? Well, we're moving to executive session,
Yes.
right? Yes, I say
Okay.
yes to move to
Ms.
executive.
Bagley Jones.
Yes.
Dr. Donahue.
Yes.
Ms. Eberhard.
Yes.
Dr. Craighead.
Aye.
Mr. Walker, yes. Thank you.